My guest today is comedian, stand-up comedian, Chris Forrest. Chris, just before we started to tape, you gave us a big yawn. I said, you're tired, you said, parenthood, fatherhood.
Yes, yes, the joys of fatherhood. Because
you're a father, obviously, and you must be a father of a very young little baby.
I am indeed, I am indeed. So not too much sleep last night, but enough to keep going.
Tell me about the kids.
I've got a 3-year-old girl and a 4-month-old girl, which means my house is mostly pink. And they take it in turns, tag teaming us, waking up during the night. The 3-year-old only wakes up once, but the 4-month-old makes sure we wake up a couple of times. It's great.
Did you have any sisters?
I had 2 sisters, yeah.
Oh, so they taught you how you were brought up in a house with women, so you understand how they think and how they act.
Nobody understands how they think. It's impossible. But, well, no man understands how they think, I should rather say.
I'm very interested in comedians because if you look at a Robin Williams committed suicide, Peter Sellers was an incredibly difficult person. I think the only ones who really survived who were comedians in their actual inner feeling were those who performed for the family, were brought up with a nice family around them. Where do you sit with this? You know, you don't look like a morose kind of person.
No, I like to think I'm quite well adjusted.
That's what I was going to say.
There's no suicide risk with me, luckily. No, I think a lot of comedians are, especially sort of the really good ones, do suffer from depression, etc., which is why I've never really made it, because I'm far too happy.
Did you grow up saying, I'm going to be a comedian, or?
Not at all. I grew up saying, I'm going to be a professional footballer, which I nearly was.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, there was only 2 things that held me back. I had a really bad ankle injury and also a complete lack of talent. But other than that, I was set. But I always enjoyed making people laugh. And then one day, per chance, I ended up trying to win a 6-pack on stage at a comedy club in Randburg. As a very shy person, being on stage wasn't the worst thing in the world for me, and I won the 6-pack, and that became my thing. So I kept going back to win it, and eventually one of the comics, a well-known radio presenter now called Darren Maul, came to me and he said, well, why don't you come and do a 10-minute spot?
And you had no trouble with a script? This was all in your head?
At that point, it was, I'd say, 80% jokes that I'd read off the internet, because you could get away with it in those days. Because comedy wasn't really an industry in South Africa yet, and 20% stuff I'd made up myself. And it went very well. So I was like, oh,
were you a good joke teller at parties? I mean, did you have a natural...
I like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, at that point in my life, I actually used to just sit on the internet. I worked in a call center. We won't say which call center, but let's just say it's the one you'd phone if this program was not visible on your television.
How do you read the audiences?
It depends. Like every now and then, because with smartphones, people do that thing. But most of the audiences, you kind of see where they are and where they're going and whatever. And if they're not going with you in a certain direction, I can change direction. Thankfully, I've had a few years of experience. It wasn't always like that. In terms of the phones and stuff, I'll mention if you're looking at your phone. Because it is a live show. But the biggest problem is people film you now.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then put that on, well, if you don't end up on a DVD, you end up on YouTube.
Are you a Joburg boy?
Joburg, born and bred.
Whereabouts? I'm trying to work out which soccer team you played for as a kid.
I grew up mostly in Parkview and Linden.
Oh, no.
So the football teams I played for.
You're from my area.
Which one?
I went to Emmerentia Primary and I was at Roosevelt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I went to Roosevelt Primary.
Were you?
Yes.
Roosevelt, we used to smash them in cricket. It was called Franklin D.
Yes. Yeah.
It was the only team we ever beat.
Yeah, when I was a lot younger than you. But
well done. Nice one.
I played football for school. I went to a technical school called John Ortec, specifically because they were the only...
Empire Road.
Yes, they were the only...
we used to be scared of those chaps, you know that.
With good reason. I was scared of them. I was at the school, and it was hectic. There was people with knives and guns and knuckle dusters, and the students were quite scary as well. But yeah, they were the only then white school, because I'm old enough to have had that separation, that played soccer. So that's why I went to John Orr. I was not technical at all. And I played soccer for Randburg for a bit, for Wits Tech, and then for Marks Park.
I lived in Greenside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go up to Marks Park all the time.
What were you doing there?
It was funny because we were from Greenside and Marks Park was Mutables. So we hung out with all the bus drivers and conductors and people like that. Especially Christmas parties or year-end parties were a lot of fun. You know, little boys from Greenside. But
there's some details there that we're missing. But it's fine, we'll fill in the blanks.
What's on the agenda for you?
As a dad, I wrote a show called Who's Your Daddy? All about my journey to fatherhood and like dealing with a pregnant woman and a young baby, etc., etc. That's going to be showing at the Santon Theatre on the Square. Tickets at strictlytickets.co.za. Did it last year. Did a run last year. Was very successful. Hence we're bringing it back. And then also working. I've got a cooking show that I'm doing because I won a cooking competition.
What is it with cooking?
I don't know. I
all the guests that I interview on the show, whether they're rock singers, whether they're whatever, you know, comedians, businessmen,
they all cook. Well, it's the easiest way to make your food taste good. But no, I entered a competition called MasterChef. Yeah, I did the Celebrity MasterChef by celebrity reads, slightly easier. And I ended up winning, which was weird because I hadn't really ever cooked before the competition.
No, you can't.
Promise you.
No, you can't. You're crazy because I can read a recipe and say this is how you make a scrambled egg, and it just never looks like anything.
Well,
so you have to have had some experience.
Trust me. And if you saw the early episodes of the show, you'd go, okay, I believe you now. But one of the judges, a chap called Pete Goffwood, he shared my dry sense of humor. And so we stayed in touch after the show, and now we're doing a cooking comedy show. That should be coming out quite soon.
So what did you cook to win the competition?
The competition, the winning dish. There was a pressure test where they give you a recipe and a whole lot of elements for a dish, which was roast lamb.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was a starter that you had to make a cold starter from scratch out of your head. And I had a lot of luck, put it that way, because one of the things I was lucky with was in the earlier rounds, I'd cooked something called a ceviche, which I'd never heard of before the competition. And then I sort of, what's researched it after we'd done it in a pressure test. And I found this recipe and I kind of memorized it for later use. And then they said cold starter.
Did you crib a bit at home? I mean, were you practicing? And
I didn't have, no, I practiced a lot when I was there. But so for the cold starter, I made this rainbow trout ceviche with avocado sorbet, which I don't claim is my own recipe because some people thought I did, but it's not. It's a recipe that I read online somewhere that I memorized. And then that was the dish that won me.
So now let's put parenthood and cooking together. What does your wife say to you now? Do you prepare baby food?
No,
with a little bit of panache?
Well, technically I prepare it for her because the baby food, because it goes in my wife's mouth and comes out. So in theory, but I do a lot more of the cooking now. My wife's a foodie, so she still enjoys cooking, but I do a lot more of the cooking than I used to. My cooking before was take some sort of pre-prepared fish, put them in the oven for 20 minutes, take them out, put them on a plate.
So it's a pretty serious part of it. So, and comedy? Comedy and cooking?
Comedy and well, I don't think it's ever been done before.
It's not Floyd.
It's not Floyd. It's, well, the stage show is called Don't Burn Your Sausage. And it's all about, we did a run of it in Grahamstown already. Now we just have to start working on it seriously for proper theatres, etc. It's all about how to get yourself into a lady's, let's say, good graces using food. Or man's, but I mean, it's a lot easier to get into a man's good
You mean
graces.
invite someone home and say, let me cook you a meal?
Let me cook, and then hopefully you get...
Does it impress women?
It does.
Or the other side?
Well, I wouldn't know, but since I'm married, so, you know, it's completely wasted now. But apparently, Pete, who's doing the show with me, he got into cooking because in his younger days, that was him and his digs mates. That was how they would attract
the other sex to come in and eat there.
Yeah, because it's I mean, look.
So you enjoy food.
Can you not see?
I interviewed Jason Goliath. Sorry, Donovan Goliath.
Okay. I was going to say that Jason really enjoys food. Donovan.
I know, and they're not brothers.
No, I know. I know them
I
very
couldn't
well.
believe it. Huh? And they've got. I'm in Melrose Arch.
They've got the roast cafe.
They've got the cafe now there, and I've said to them, why don't you do Lunchtime Friday? You know, why don't you expand comedy? Because always Friday, people are a little more relaxed, especially if you have
That's a good idea.
a show. You know, like a lunchtime show where we can just do something different from around lunchtime instead of going to get a sandwich or something, you know, whatever happens in Melrose Arch. It's such a nice idea.
Way back in the day, there used to be those lunchtime.
Can you just
comedy
stand up
shows.
and you've always got a routine in your head?
Pretty much.
Hey?
I've been doing it for going on 17 years now. So it's.
Do you do a lot of emceeing as well?
I do a lot of emceeing.
Is it
Because a lot of the
tedious?
times, no, not at all. It's like there'll be a corporate function, like you're talking about, talking on finance. And what people will do is they'll say they want a comedy MC in between. So that's kind of what I'll do is I'll come and do sort of a bit of comedy in between, introduce the next speaker. So the corporate shows are actually your bread and butter for me. So I do set entertainment and I do a lot of MCing, just chatting in between guys.
And I was just thinking about your comedy. Who do you base yourself on anyone, or do you have to be totally original? You try to be as original as possible.
I try to be as original, but I'm always influenced by somebody. You know, I've been watching a lot of Louis C.K. lately.
Yeah, I love it.
I really enjoy him. I've recently listened to.
I actually there was a Trumbo. What was the movie? Did you see him in Trumbo?
No.
Wonderful movie about. The McCarthy era in Hollywood and that, and he acted in there as well. And he's a pretty good actor.
I can imagine. He
Pretty
had a
good
really
actor.
good.
It wasn't
good
a comedy role.
I haven't watched many movies in the last 3 years. Coincidentally, since I became a dad, I dedicate my free time to watching my football team, which is Liverpool.
Oh no, you're kidding.
Somebody has to.
That shows your age. Because you must have grown up in the 80s, because that's the era that they were great.
You
can always identify.
I missed that era. I just loved Bruce Crowell. I was a goalkeeper. So
were you? Because I'm an Arsenal fan, and I always remember 1989 when Bruce let the goal through his legs, and
yes, well, the first
Arsenal
goal
won 2-0
was offsides.
Yeah, we're going to leave it there. Chris, it's been wonderful talking to you. Advertise your show once more.
Once more. It's called Who's Your Daddy? It's happening at the Santon Theatre on the Square from the 31st of May to the 18th of June. Tickets at strictlytickets.com. It's for anyone who is a parent or is becoming a parent or who knows who their parents are.
And then your cooking classes.
It's not a class. That's but look out for that. That's still coming in a few months' time. It's called Don't Burn Your Sausage.
You've been on the couch with me, David Shapiro, and Chris Forrest.